Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 5th of January. It is the 7th in our second series of Voice of the Cantor, Cantors who have made their mark. And this evening we have Cantor Debbie Katchko-Gray. And in a minute I'll introduce Alex Klein, who will introduce Cantor Debbie. But first, just a little bit of an introduction from me, Russell Grossman, one of the ECA executive on the European Cantors Association, for those who may not have come across us. We were established in 2012 and we exist to uplift and keep alive the depth, the breadth and richness of Chazanut in all its forms, both traditional cantorial music, respecting and honouring the richness of our tradition, and modern approaches to the cantorate, looking what is happening into the future. ECA therefore seeks to strengthen, uplift and highlight the importance and the centrality of the cantorial tradition in all its richness and diversity for people to appreciate and to have access to. We're an independent organisation affiliated to no specific branch of Judaism, and we reach across the spectrum of Jewish worship to ensure the unique music of our prayers continues to enhance synagogue services for generations to come. We arrange Cantors conventions along Orthodox lines in the UK and European cities. Our academic wing presents international conferences in partnership with universities around the world, and we present Zoom talks such as this one, The Voice of the Cantor, blessed by participation of world-renowned cantors and musicians. Let me introduce Alex Klein, who will be interviewing this evening. Alex has always been passionate about the music of the synagogue. He was born in London. He studied at Jews College, attending Reverend Brill's cantorial classes. He settled in Manchester, where he brought a significant amount of Jewish artists and cantors to the UK for concert tours. He's been a leading figure in synagogue music in the UK, lecturing widely and heading the Jewish Music Institute's synagogue music section. He's now the director of the European Cantors Association. He is Alex Klein.
Thank you, Russell, for those kind words, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. And welcome, everybody, and welcome to Cantor Debbie Katchko-Gray. Very pleased that you could be with us tonight, and we're all looking forward to listening to your story and the adventure of women being in the cantorate today. Growing up with the name Katchko, was it a difficult thing, or was a lot of things expected from you with the family name? Because your grandfather, Adolf, wrote the book, so to speak, on the Nusach, and everybody uses it today in colleges and cantorial schools, etc., etc. So what was it like for you as a child coming into this world, first of all being a female, and secondly with the name Katchko?
Well, thank you. Well, it was interesting. Growing up, I was aware that my grandfather wrote so much beautiful music because I used to listen to my parents rehearse and practice. My father was a cantor. My mother was his accompanist for many years. And I always heard this beautiful music, and I was aware that my grandfather wrote most of it. But it wasn't an option for a woman, growing up to think that I could be a cantor. I gravitated towards folk music. I played guitar. I played a lot of coffee houses. I did some Jewish music as a preteen with my friend Cantor Benjiel and Shir, and Lori Pomper, Renat, and Dina Gelb. And it really wasn't until college when I thought that I could go into, let's say, the family business in a way, that this was an option for me. I had actually a rabbi, a BU Hillel rabbi, who suggested that I do the high holidays. And when I sang my grandfather's music, I felt something that this was really where I belonged, to sing his music and not just, be another Joni Mitchell, Judy Collins wannabe. They were already out there doing a very fine job. And I thought, it was a lot more meaningful to continue with my family music, even though my parents were not really encouraging. They didn't think being a cantor was a job for a nice Jewish girl, certainly not in the 1970s. And then, of course, they were very proud when I continued in that field.
So how did you start? Did you go to college? Were you accepted in college to study at the cantorate? Because it was, difficult times. It's not like the 1920s that we have, the 2020s that we have today.
Right.
It was
was
You
different.
were one of the founders, I presume, within the female cantors movement. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. So I went to Boston University and I studied with Elie Wiesel. And I like to say that I majored in Elie Wiesel. And when I graduated, I did consider going to cantorial school. But I really wanted to be in the conservative movement. I just had this thing in my head that I had to sing my grandfather's music, and it had to be in a place where Nusach was used a lot. And I approached Hebrew in college, and it just didn't feel like the right fit for me. I was probably too much of a rebel in those years. And I would have gone to the Jewish Theological Seminary, but if you attended their program, at the Cantors Institute, you could graduate with a master's in Jewish music, but not a degree as Kazan. My friend Elaine Shapiro graduated with a master's in Jewish music, later was granted a degree of Kazan, but she studied everything the men did, but didn't get the same degree. And I'm from, working class parents. The thought of paying money for tuition and not getting the degree that you're supposed to, it seems silly. Also, the Cantors Assembly in those years was not admitting women. So I would pay money for a degree I couldn't get, and then I wouldn't be helped by the union in terms of getting a job. So my first husband had heard about a job opening in Norwalk at a conservative synagogue. And my father literally took me by the hand, and we walked into the rabbi's office. And I'll never forget, he said, "We've auditioned 18 men. At this point, we'll audition anyone." "Sure, we'll audition you." And I got the job. So it was exciting. At the time, the conservative movement had a minority opinion. The Committee of Law and Standards had a minority opinion, I believe it was like 11-3, but 3 was valid, that you could have a woman rabbi or cantor. And this was actually 1981.
It's a long way to come from where you started and then being on the executive of the Cantors Assembly.
Well,
So
at some point, I was on the executive committee, which was great.
So that was a journey on its own, because
absolutely,
when you started, tell us about the movement of encouraging women, and how did you get to encourage friends and people who wanted to go into the cantor but couldn't? So
right.
What was your way of helping others?
Thank you. Yeah, I saw things in a very different way, but now I think people are seeing it in a similar way. When I first became a cantor, I didn't have any colleagues to speak with, and I believe that we need to share. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. You share music, you share ideas, you share about situations. It's so important to have that, and I didn't have it. So I went to the Cantors Assembly conventions. I used to go with my father, and I went in, and I did feel welcomed. But I remember sitting at a table with a bunch of women, people who were thinking about studying for the cantorate. Elaine Shapiro was there. She was already working as a conservative cantor. And I remember thinking, we should get together. This would be wonderful to gather. We have a lot to share. And so this is before the internet. I sent out little press releases to the Jewish Week and Moment Magazine and Jewish Boston and Washington, different areas. And 12 women showed up for the very first conference of women cantors. And we decided to call it the Women Cantors Network. And it grew from 12 women. At one point we had 300 members. Now I think we're stable at about 250. Very low dues. Again, anyone can join. I made it very clear that this is not a place of judgment. You could be a student cantor, you could be part-time, you could be full-time, you could have a degree, you could not have a degree, you could be studying for a degree, you could write Jewish music, you could be interested in the cantorate, you might just like being around cantorial music. I didn't want it to be a place of judgment, because I feel that there are so many places that will judge us, and how wonderful to be in a safe space where we can pray together and learn from each other totally without judgment. And one of the greatest things about the Women Cantors Network is when you go to a conference, and God willing, we'll have an in-person conference one day again, you never know who is a superstar and who is not. People don't walk around with their egos flailing. You don't know who's got a big congregation. You don't know who's, barely hanging on with a high holiday pulpit. Everyone's respected. Everyone prays together. Everyone's voice is welcome. And I think it's a wonderful space. And at the end of every conference, you have a circle, and many women are in tears. They're literally crying that this is the only place where they feel accepted, and they feel a place where they can grow and feel validated. So I think that's important. And the last conference I went to online, I believe it was the ACC, American Conference of Cantors, they asked everyone to take their title off and just put their name on. And I thought, wow, they've come a long way, so that maybe nobody should feel intimidated. But I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, the first female cantor I met was Elaine Shapiro, and I happened to meet her in London at St John's Wood Shul, where Simon Spira was the cantor at the time, and I went to see her in Palm Beach in Florida, and heard her daven, and it was something very, very special. I believe she's also influenced you, and also a dear friend.
Absolutely. In fact, you'll see a picture at some point of me and Elaine at a Cantors Assembly convention, and then many, many years later. But she was the very first conservative full-time cantor in America. And I was so delighted to meet her. I actually sang at her wedding, and we became very close. So yeah, she's been very special to me.
Yes,
as a mentor.
What got me was how traditional she was with her davening and knowledgeable with her nusach. It wasn't like you hear today the happy clappy, the guitars,
right, from a song
sort
book,
of thing.
right? Mm-hmm. Right. Well, she studied at the seminary. She had a fantastic education, and she respected the traditional music.
Can you tell me about your relationship with Elie Wiesel? Because such a dear person who we sadly miss, who did so much for Holocaust education. So how did he come into your life, or you come into his life?
Oh, yes, I came into his life. I was so fortunate to, I actually chose to go to Boston University in order to study with him. I did that on purpose. I actually didn't care what else I studied at BU, but I knew I wanted to study with Elie Wiesel. And the very first day of class, he had to choose how many people could be in a classroom because of fire code. And he made us write on a 3x5 card, why do you want to be in my class? And I remember writing something like, I'm from a family of Cantors, and I want to know more about my family left behind during the Holocaust. And I want to teach Jewish children about music and culture, because at that time I didn't know I could be a cantor. It didn't seem like an option. And he said something very profound that changed my life. As I was walking out the door, he pulled me aside and he said, my door will always be open to you. And he was a bit of a rebel like me. So I registered for the 1 or 2 classes a semester that I was legally allowed to. And then literally his door was open to me. I sat in on all the graduate level classes. If there was a PhD dissertation, he let me sit in on that. I got to experience incredible things. And I became a lifelong student. I literally have taken notes for the next 40 years from classes. And every year I would go back to his classroom, at least for a day or two, to experience that learning from such a wonderful master, such a wonderful teacher. And I'm trying to write a book. I shouldn't use the word trying. I once worked out with a trainer and he said, trying is lying. So I am writing a book called Class Notes, A Lifetime of Learning with Elie Wiesel. And God willing, I'll finish it in my lifetime.
I'd like to play a recording of yours just to show the different, different generations of the Katchko family. So Russell has got set up your grandfather, your father, and you, I think, singing. So
yeah, I
think we'll talk about that after we play it.
I think.
Your children well, their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you.
Quite a lovely mix of music, and I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off it because the photographs was so poignant and memorable. Is there anything that we're looking at that you want to talk about?
Well, the invisible thread was kind of an interesting experience. The photographer was Mike Tyson's photographer. And this is just kind of a funny story that the picture that you see is, I didn't always wear tefillin, but I sometimes wore tefillin. And I thought it would be important for years later for young women to be able to look and see that it was possible for a woman cantor to wear tefillin. But the picture that you're not seeing is she came to a voice lesson, and there was a picture in triplicate. And you know, when you're vocalizing, you don't always make, you know, pretty faces. So it was like, and the picture was like, times 3 in triplicate. And I'll never forget, my mother looked at it and she said, can you buy every copy of this book so nobody should see it? We were horrified, but it was a nice article. What was missing in that was the next stage of my life, which has really been the greatest stage, has been as cantor of now congregation Shir Shalom, but it was Temple Shir Israel, and my wonderful Rabbi John Haddon is on this Zoom, and it's really thanks to him that I landed in a very loving, musically respectful, cantorally celebrating home, because Rabbi Haddon was the director of the School of Sacred Music at Hebrew Union College. My mother used to joke and call it the School of Scared Music, but it was not like that with Rabbi Haddon. He was absolutely wonderful. And he welcomed me as someone who was a cantor, was a director of a cantorial school that taught my grandfather's music and loved cantors. And I'll never forget, he said, your success is my success. You know, we're in this together. And he wasn't afraid of somebody with a big personality and, you know, did a lot of stuff out in the world. He celebrated anything good that I did. And we still have a beautiful, beautiful friendship. And it was just such a wonderful relief to be with a rabbi who loves Chazanut, wanted to sing Chazanut, you know, could still sing Chazanut, and you know, encouraged me to even try different kinds of music. It was just fabulous. So I'm just grateful that Rabbi Haddon's here. And thanks to him, I'm in this pulpit now 22 years, and I never thought I would be happy in a Reform synagogue. And they don't say that with any malice, but I always felt I belonged in the conservative movement because of my grandfather's music. But thanks to Rabbi Haddon, he made this Reform pulpit a place where I could play my guitar and do my folk stuff, and I can do, you know, serious Chazanut and bring in all sorts of instruments and make it a creative musical wonderland. So
we could do with
Rabbi
more
Haddon.
John Haddons in the rabbinate today. Thank you, John. You can join the ECA with the grace of the pleasure, and we can do with you.
He's a
Absolutely.
champion. He's a champion for Cantors. Yeah.
Because it's important that when one is in shul as a chazan, that you should be in charge of chazanut and the music, you don't interfere with the rabbi. So with the synagogue, you were very fortunate to have John as your rabbi, but
Yes.
some people,
Well, you know, it's a partnership, and
yes,
and I try and say this to other cantors. You know, people do reach out to me for advice, especially during like contract time. And it's so important to know that, you know, in the Cantors Assembly has the new saying, you know, singing is just the beginning. Getting up and singing is one part of our job, but it's also very, very important to care about the life of the synagogue, the financial stability of the synagogue, the role of the rabbi. You know, I go out of my way. I work with a wonderful rabbi, Rabbi David Reiner, now 7 years. And when I make challah, I make an extra one for him. When I think he needs a Friday night off, I'll say, Rabbi, why don't you take this Friday night off? I can take it. Don't worry about it. We look for ways to help each other. I look out for him. He looks out for me. I have never walked into this synagogue with a knot in my stomach. Never. And I know what that's like because I've been in places where you feel that. You're not sure if you're being judged, watched, attacked. It's just been wonderful. Every single time I sit down for a contract talk, the synagogue, and I believe Rabbi Haddon helped create this environment. All they say is, Cantor, what can we do to support your work? When I tell this to other Cantors, they're like, are you kidding? That's what they say. I give my best. I want to, you know, give them the best that I can offer. And I look beyond my role of just singing. I look ways to bring in different authors, bring in culture, bring in music, work with the children, do things out in the community, help other people. We need to look beyond the Amud and say, you know, how are we going to affect change and bring love and excitement into our synagogue? Because we are part of the lifeblood. I feel that I'm like a Jewish cheerleader. You know, I wasn't a jock growing up. But I feel like Cantors have to be like the cheerleaders for culture, for Jewish life, for music, for families. You know, what can we do to bring life into the synagogue? It's, you know, much more important than what Hashkivenu we chose. Though I think that's important too.
Yes, but this used to be the norm when I was growing up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in the synagogues in London through United Synagogue. The normal thing was that the chazan, the reader, the reverend, and the rabbi worked together within the community, doing outreach work, hospital visits, and shiva houses, and so on and so forth, all the cultural things. And this has been lost in I would say, the last 20 or 30 years. It's reverted, well, in the UK, back to something that hopefully somebody will see the light and come back again. And but within the States, I don't know whether you had the same problem or you continue to shine the light within the Reform movement and the Conservative movement, but is that in the Orthodox movement as well?
No, I really believe it's what you bring to your position and also the state of the synagogue. You know, some synagogues are going through a very, very tough time. And we have to be sensitive to that. And, you know, you have to have Rachmanis as well. But I think that there are a lot of cantors who are doing a lot of wonderful things, who are doing very well, who are bringing a lot of spirit and joy and music and culture and art. The cantors that have a broad view and are willing to, you know, go beyond the whatever your job description is, I think are going to always do well. I always say, you know, if you have to look at your contract to what you're doing, that's a problem. I have never been, I've never looked at my contract unless it's contract time, but even then I don't look at it very seriously because I just do everything I possibly can. And even when I went technically part-time to help the synagogue, I still go beyond whatever the written scope of my job responsibilities are. I feel you're part of a community and you should do, you know, whatever you can within reason to bring joy and life and culture and, you know, make
what
it
about
special.
Debbie Cantor, the cellist?
Well, I try and keep that quiet. I was playing with the Danbury Symphony, and it's like that, is it a Woody Allen joke? Any club that would have me as a member, what kind of club is that? But they're okay. It's not like the Ridgefield Symphony's professionals, but I love playing cello. I have been playing for, you know, since I'm 18 and I'm going to be 65. So that's a long time. I'm still working on the Bach Cello Suite number 1. One day I'm going to get it right, but you know, it's a lifelong thing. And it's interesting when you sing, bing, you get the note. When you're playing guitar, there it is. When you play cello, it's not always perfect. And I have the curse of relative pitch. I don't have perfect pitch. My mother did. You could blindfold her and play any note on the piano and she'd tell you, you know, it's B flat above C or whatever. If I hear something that's a little bit off, it's physically painful. So, but I have worked at, you know, I can play and not make it painful, but I'm very critical of myself. And, you know, I'm not bad. I did, you know, get into the Danbury Symphony. So we'll see. I'll just keep playing, but I love it.
Right. You've taught yourself into playing a bit of guitar for me and singing Hushki Venu.
So okay.
So
yeah.
You taught yourself into that one, Debbie.
I did, didn't I? So the one thing I'm proud of is, you know, cantorial music was, when I grew up, it was with the organ. My mother played the organ and she played the piano as well. Now, I don't think many synagogues have an organ, but synagogues might have a piano, but you know, I think mostly due to budgetary reasons, a lot of synagogues are happy with the guitar. I think a piano adds a lot more, honestly, but I play the guitar and I try and play it kind of in a harp-like way so that it's not like, you know, it's more just kind of picking up notes. And I think it can be done very sensitively. And
this is the classical Katchko.
Not to do a sales pitch, but I do have a songbook that I think is the first songbook of Chazanut with guitar chords. And it's also, the music is transcribed into keys that are female friendly. So they're more comfortable for a woman cantor. Part of the problem with singing cantorial music is a lot of it was written for baritones or tenors. And it was a crazy key. It was like, you know, like a fifth too high. And I tried to put everything in kind of a normal key, which I think is good for anybody, male or female. So I'll just do a very little beginning of this Hushki Venu. I'll give you a little background to it. This lovely booklet, which is long out of print, the Hushki Venu. There were 5 Hushki Venus. They were solo, congregational, choral, and the Hushki Venu number 4 was the most popular one. And I believe it's still very popular. And my father had a wonderful way of describing it. He called it the audition Hashkivenu, because when you sang this Hashkivenu at audition, you got the job. And a lot of cantors love this Hashkivenu. It just seems to have all the right elements of chazanut. It moves along, it's meaningful. My grandfather had a gift of marrying the text to the music. A lot of times you hear a prayer and it's, shoved into 3 chords and it just has no relationship at all, either to Nasach or to the meaning of the words. And my grandfather was so gifted that he wrote music that elevated the liturgy, literally elevated the meaning of the prayer. And one of the reasons my grandfather wasn't quite as famous as some of the golden age of Chazanut cantors, and this is not to be critical, but he didn't believe in concertizing the way they did. And I also kind of shy away. It's not that I'm asked to be in so many cantors concerts, I'm not, but I have a problem with performing some of these prayers because to me, they feel best sung in synagogue. That's where they belong. I don't believe they belong on a concert stage. Occasionally it's great to have something orchestrated, and it's a thrill to sing something like this with a chamber orchestra, and I have done that. But I think it's really nice to keep our best efforts in synagogue and to keep these prayers not on the stage, but in shul. So here's just a little bit of his Hashkivenu number 4, which I think just brings you into the feeling of shelter, cause us to lie down in peace and raise us up to life again, O God, and put a shelter of peace over us, which we certainly could use. Hashkivenu ad Hashem Elokeinu l'shalom, Amideinu Malkeinu l'chaim, uferos aleinu sukat shelomecha, v'takneinu b'eitzah tova milfanecha, v'hoshi'einu l'man shemecha. It's just a little
That's
bit.
beautiful. The nusach and it's so correct and it's so meaningful.
Thank you. I want to show you one other thing. I love to show my students that my grandfather was. It's funny, when I grew up, I literally thought he wrote all of Jewish music, and he wrote a kol nidre. But I would say to someone, and I'd say, my grandfather, he wrote Jewish music. He didn't just write some Jew. He wrote Jewish music. When I was younger, and I would say, did you ever hear this? Kol nidre. And they go, I've heard that. My grandfather wrote that. Well, of course, he wrote a version of it, but he did write this. Baruch atah Ad Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoteinu v'Imotenu. He wrote that, and it's sung in every synagogue, everywhere. That, the beginning of the Avot. So, anyway, thanks for asking.
Well, it's a calling. It's in your, as Benny Meisner put it in the chat, it's in your DNA. So
sweet. Well,
this is absolutely superb. It's something you can't learn. Or do you believe that you can learn to become a chazan, or is it a calling, or does it have to be in your neshama to be able to actually interpret the tefillah?
I think you need a little bit of everything. I don't want to pass judgment, but sometimes you can hear if someone is just singing the notes on the page, it's a very uncomfortable thing. You feel like, either it's an opera score or you're singing cantorial music. You need to put feeling into it. You've got to have, you got to feel the liturgy, because we're just a vessel for the prayer. And if we choose the right music, hopefully we can let people feel what this prayer means. And I think that is so important. I know you're going to ask me in a little bit about my cousin Leopold, but I just want to give a little lesson that he gave me. I met this amazing Katchko relative, Cantor Leopold Shir of blessed memory. And it was because he heard a Cantors Assembly Spirit of Israel CD where I was singing this. He was sitting in a car with his wife Isabel, and he was interested because I think he heard a little chazanut in that Yemenite rock, which I was interested in that kind of music. I still am, I love it. I can't find a song that I like as much as that Dodim that's got that rock Yemenite beat. If anyone knows one, send it along. Anyway, he turned to his wife, who picked it up at a thrift shop because they gave it away for free and someone must have donated it to the thrift shop. She was volunteering. She brings it to her husband. He's sitting in the car. He turns the CD over. Deborah Katchko. I wonder if she's related, because his father's first cousin was Aaron Katchko from Kalisz, Poland, who became a famous cousin. The thing that was so crazy is he was an Orthodox cantor in Beverly Hills in LA for like 30 years, was not involved in any cantorial organization. Had he stepped foot in one Cantors Assembly, anything, he would have met someone who knew Katchko and could have told him all about it, and we would have met. But he really was in his own world in this Orthodox, lovely synagogue, Magen David in LA. Anyway, we meet, and one of the first things he tells me is, he says, "Do you want to be a good chazan?" Of course. If you want to be a good chazan, you have to be a ner. Ner means light.
Light, yeah.
If you take the two letters that make up the word ner, nun, he says, stands for neshama. You have to have a good soul. Reish stands for ruach. You have to have a good spirit. If you have a neshama and ruach, a good spirit and good soul, and you put it together, you'll be a light to others. And I thought that was so beautiful that I actually wrote a song with my dear friend Beth Stiles, who I know you admire as one of the wonderful composers of new American music. And if I get a chance, I'll do a little bit of the lesson of Poldy and the song that we wrote. Why not right now? Just give you a tiny taste.
So is this a song that you and Beth collaborated on?
Yes.
Brilliant.
And it's based on the lesson from Poldy on how to be a good chazan, but it's really how to be a good person. Be the light of peace. Be the light of hope. Be the light of spirit. And near to the world. Be the light of joy. Be the light of faith. Be the light of healing. Shir Shalom. Shir Shalom. Shir Shalom. Shir Shalom Uvracha. And I know we've got a lot of things to talk about, but God bless Beth for, she did, I think, most of the writing, and I added a little bit, but it's the only song I've ever written, and I could never have done it without Beth. And it's based on this wonderful lesson by my cousin Poldy. Be a ner.
I'm a big admirer of Beth, but I don't think I've met her, but I would love to interview her.
She's on the call. You should interview her in the future. She's got amazing Jewish music. Her liturgical music is absolutely gorgeous.
Well, she should come to one of our conventions, please God, and do a workshop about composition and music.
Her stuff is amazing. And by the way, Budapest, my grandfather was offered to be the chief cantor of Budapest. This was like 1921, and he had some argument with someone, but according to his bio, he ended up being the chazan at the Tabak temple. I think he was studying with Cantor Lazarus, who might have been the chief cantor of Budapest at the time. something happened, but thank God a relative from America, from his wife, brought him to America in 1922. And that's why I'm sitting here speaking with you, because he was rescued and came to this country, but he left behind two cantorial brothers and 3 sisters. And out of our family, we lost 70 members in the Holocaust. And that's one of my motivations, studying with Elie Wiesel.
Can we just show a picture, if Russell can get it out, of your grandfather with another famous cousin?
Oh, that's a great picture.
Yeah, so
he had a kachelain. He had a little house in White Sulphur Spring, New York, upstate New York. And I love this picture because they're standing on a rock, and that is Zavel Kwarten, who was his best friend and one of the golden age of Chazanut superstars, as my grandfather was, even though he didn't perform so much. But I love this picture. They're singing to each other on a rock. You can almost hear it. Listen to me. Listen to this.
This is so special. I love that photograph, and I copied it and printed it out, and I hope it's okay, because it's
oh, it's great. It's Chazanut in motion.
So there's another. Somebody told me that you've been asked to form a women's choir for the Kotel Amaravi.
Oh yeah, this is great. Again, I'll have a little visual for you. So I saw a picture of Anat Hoffman, and she was wearing a talit that was stained. Somebody threw hot coffee at her as she was praying at the Kotel in the women's section. And I was so horrified to think that literally somebody would be assaulted during prayer. This is just so vile and goes against everything we believe in. You know, you can have your side, we can have our side, can live together in peace. My singing doesn't take away from your singing. If you don't want to hear a woman's voice, so go stand over there, you know, but don't throw hot coffee at us. And I was so horrified that I had a talit that was already like a coffee colored brown. And it looked kind of like this. I sent it to her, a homemade hand-stitched talit, and she was very, moved by it. And then I thought I should invite her to speak to my sisterhood. And then I was talking to some cantorial friends of mine, and they said, well, why don't we have her speak to the Women Cantors Network? Because we're all on the same page here. This is what we all believe in. And that was brilliant. But when she came to speak to the Women Cantors Network, instead of just giving the usual spiel that she gave the sisterhood about what they're doing at the wall and how they're trying to get the Kotel agreement implemented, she challenged us, and she challenged me in particular, to form a Women of the Wall choir, because she said we need to enhance our worship. And if we had a circle of sound, a beautiful harmony, a beautiful music coming together, you know, it could help counteract the whistles and the screaming from the other side. It's horrible, but it would elevate the music. And so the Women Cantors Network has funded this, the beginning of it. I found a wonderful choral director in Jerusalem who's going to find the singers. And then I listened to the recording of their services, and it's going to be the same music they do. We're not going to throw anything new at them. This is the music they're comfortable with. And then my dear friend Beth Stiles did a beautiful, simple, but gorgeous arrangement of these pieces that I chose. We made a teaching recording that we're going to give them. And they'll, God willing, any cantorial student or cantor rabbi who wanted to join in with the choir would be able to have this music and join and help make this really beautiful. We're going to be discussing it in January about getting the word out there about this choir, but right now I'm just calling it the Wow Choir. I don't know if we'll have a more clever name, you know, but for now it
has the wow factor, doesn't it?
Let's hope it's a wow. Let's hope it's a wow and not an ow.
But you talk about education, because again, I'm going to go back to Elie Wiesel, and the Holocaust is very, very important in your life, in the fact that education. I mean, we're coming up in January to Holocaust Memorial Day in the UK or around the world, and it's very, very important for the next generation, the first generation, the second generation, and the third generation,
Right.
to educate the world, so to speak, about not just about what is the past, but what is happening today, because the Holocaust around the world is still taking place, with all
I
the
would say
problems.
anti-Semitism is taking place. And
Yes.
Elie Wiesel said that he thought that, after Auschwitz, that there would be no anti-Semitism. He couldn't imagine. I mean, I'm almost, I know it sounds terrible, but I'm glad he's not around right now to witness some of the horrors that we're seeing and some of the injustices and the rise of anti-Semitism. I read about it. What's going on in the UK is terrible. What goes on in New York is terrible. We need to try and get a handle on it. But my studies with Elie Wiesel affected me in such a way that you had asked me before, how did I train to be a cantor? Well, I trained by studying with Elie Wiesel, and then I studied with Jackie Mendelson, the world's greatest cantorial coach, I believe, and my father, who taught me everything that his father taught him. And then I studied, along the way and picked up whatever I could and went to a lot of Cantors Assembly conventions, which can be very educational as well, but kind of, lived a life in the cantorate. But the studies with Elie Wiesel, I've got to say that one of the things he taught us was the miracle of just being a Jew. We take for granted that we're, if you're a cantor, you're going to get up, you're going to sing, you're going to hold a prayer book. And, how many years I went to Orthodox day school a little bit. I went to Orthodox religious school. I loved going to synagogue with my father. And when they'd say, pick up the Siddur, turn to page 28 for the Kiddush. That was the Silverman book. You'd pick up the Siddur. But Elie Wiesel taught me that the very act of holding a Siddur is a precious honor. That imagine a Holocaust survivor being even able to get a Siddur in their hands. They would have lost their life. They would have given their life if they could have a Siddur. A book full of prayers. He was the only teacher that inspired me so that the very act of holding a Siddur is a privilege. And when you look at life the way he taught us to, he said, when you take my class, you'll never see life the same way again. And I believe that's true. He said, it's too difficult to think about 6 million, but just take the life of one person who lost their life. Try and live your life in a doubly Jewish way. If you light Shabbat candles, light them for someone who is not able to do it, who was not able to do it, whose life was cut short. When you do something Jewish, think about doing it not just for yourself, but for someone else. And I think that has affected my cantorate as well. It's just changed my life. It makes me look at things in a way where I don't want to waste time. I know I'm probably involved in too many things. I'm always busy. I don't need a lot of downtime. I mean, I like to relax like a normal person, but I find that I'm always doing something else. I'm thinking about the next program, the next project, the next thing, what else is there to do? It's not about standing and singing. It's about doing for others and trying to make a difference in this world.
So do you think, because I believe it, because of your teachings and the inspiration of others, has that taught you to look at prayer in a different way to what you would have done before you met someone like Elie Wiesel or your cousin or other people who have been through these?
Yeah, I think it certainly has inspired me, just the very fact of the miracle of Jewish survival. It's so much more than just the music that you choose. But I do feel it's very important to choose music and any style. There are many styles available, and I like to do an eclectic collection of music. But I think it's very important that the music serves the text, that the text is not just shoved into a couple chords that are, I hear some things, and I get anthologies that come out, and like, this is the latest and the greatest. And it's not that I'm getting old-fashioned and getting older. I mean, I'm open to learning new things, but I'd say 95% of it I don't even want to ever hear again. I just find it like it's an insult to the prayers. I want something that's going to elevate the prayer, that's going to elevate the music. And not to give another plug to my dear friend Beth Stiles, but I'm going to, which she writes something and it's contemporary, and she'll use English, she'll use Hebrew, and she'll delve into the text, and some of her music is only Hebrew, it's only the text. I feel changed, I feel uplifted, I feel better. It never feels forced. So studying with Wiesel and singing with Wiesel, he had an amazing musical influence on me as well. We did a sing-along together that I do a program on because I love playing his voice and hearing the recording of him singing Ani Mami, and there's nobody better. But his love of music, I think, made me appreciate as well. I'll give you a little example of something that he did that was unbelievable, because my cousin Poldy did the same thing, and I think it's a tradition that came out of Europe, but it was the Yari Bone, which I used to sing with my father. I used to go with him in the car to his part-time pulpit when I was in high school, and I would ride with him, and we would often sing, Yari Bone, olam ve'o maya, ve'o maya, antu malka melech malchaya, melech malchaya. Well, when I sang that for Wiesel, this is what he did. We sang, Yari Bone, olam ve'o maya, ve'o maya, antu malka, oy tata zisa melech, melech malchaya. Oh, Father, sweet King. And my cousin Poldy did the same thing. And that was a tradition from Europe. And to me, that's so precious. So when I sing it, I always like to include that. That's
This is a
something
song
that you just don't find
this is a song
everywhere.
we used to sing as well when I was growing up. Yari Bon Olam, the same
So
tune
beautiful. Yeah.
all around the world. But what you
Right.
said, I think, was quite right. Somebody like Beth Stiles, Laurie Akers, and a few other composers work with the text, and that's something very, very important. There's no point in, it's like somebody singing something happy in a minor key when it should be in a major, or somebody, or something like that. It came off the top of my head because it's important to understand the meaning of the tefillah or the psalm or whatever you want to, whatever you're singing,
Right. And
bring them in, whether it's contemporary, modern.
Sure.
So, and somebody like Beth will bring that in to show people who maybe cannot read Hebrew or maybe cannot follow a siddur, but to give the meaning in a modern, contemporary way,
Right.
but also in the old-fashioned way. So I think the two fuse, and that's what impresses me about Beth's music. And again, about your grandfather's music, there is no, how can I say it, time. That music is carry on forever and ever and ever. Lador, for generation to generation.
Right.
It doesn't need to change. If it's not broken, why change it?
That's how I feel about Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharim. It evokes a time and a place and a healing feeling. But I also wanted to say that I am challenging Beth that we're going to work on this. We're going to take a piece of my grandfather's. We're going to take some nusach that is often done at, say, a chatimah from a Friday night, and I'm going to have Beth add an English interpretation of it, but we'll start with the actual nusach because it's important for people to hear traditional nusach, and then have something that works with it, that's contemporary, that because people need to understand. I think part of the problem is, we sing in Hebrew, and at least, the congregations that I'm serving, most people don't speak Hebrew. They don't really understand Hebrew. They know basically what a prayer means because they're looking at the translation. But, it's not our fluent language. So I think we have a responsibility to let people know what these prayers mean. And it's not always by listening to an English reading. I'm happy to sing through a whole service. That's one thing that maybe all rabbis don't love about me, because I could do without any readings. I know some of them are important and they're nice and they're uplifting, but honestly, I could do without a lot of readings and just sing through the service and enjoy it that way. But I'm going to work with Beth on taking a Katchko Chatima and working it into something with English. Another thing with modern congregations, people aren't going to sit and listen to a 5-minute piece. They don't have the Zitzfleisch. They don't want to sit and listen and on and on and on. One of the things, my grandfather was revolutionary when he took the very ornate nusach from Europe and kind of made it a little cleaner and straightforward. He created really the American nusach for the cantorial curriculum, everything a cantor needed to sing, but he made it in a way that was palatable to an American congregation. They didn't want to hear a word repeated 3 times. Things kind of moved along. Now I think we're at a point where people have less attention span. It's probably due to media and the social media and the way our lives are, and they want to make services shorter. They don't want to sit through a 3-hour service. They want the service to be an hour. We have to find ways to do little pieces of things. Sometimes I'll just do a third of my grandfather's Hashkivenu and then the Chatima. And you know what? That's better than nothing, because I want the people to hear some of that. Or just do a Chatima as often as you can, so people hear the Nusach and remember that a cantor has a place. And, a cantor is not someone that just you hand a songbook to and they can just sing their way through it. It's so much more.
But Faith said in our last interview that for her the importance is not the coloratura or not getting a top C or a top note. It's interpreting the prayer like she does. And when she did Brothers of Shabbos, there was no screaming or shrieing or it's not a matter of the notes reaching a top note. People today, they make their voices louder. They're not actually changing the note itself.
Right.
They end up screaming.
Right.
And I think to get people's attention, if you're doing a job correctly, you don't need to scream. You can talk nice and quietly, and people will listen if you've got something to say. And it's the same with prayer. If you've got something to say and to interpret with prayer, people will listen.
Right. It's like the beginning of my grandfather's most perfect Hashkivenu.
Yeah.
It doesn't start out like this, and it shouldn't be, because it's a prayer about being comforted and being protected, and the fear that I hope I wake up in the morning. I hope I'll be alive.
What does the future hold when we haven't got the Benny Misers and the Jackie Mendelssohns and people of that ilk who are teaching the next generation, who will be the teachers of our children and our grandchildren? How do we preserve? Do you have any thoughts about the future, or how we can all help?
Wonderful teachers like Benny and Jack have inspired dozens, hundreds of cantors who are out there in the world, who are going to share it, hopefully, with more future cantors. But thank God we have recordings available. We have music available. We have videos available. People can actually see. There are a lot of ways to learn and transmit this. The best way, I think, is sitting in shul and praying together as a congregation, and being able to be inspired by a chazan who cares about the music and the words. And like I said, for my grandfather, he was a master at word painting. You got a sense of what the prayer meant by listening to the music. And I think we need to keep that in mind.
So before we end and we open up
Is it time to end?
Well, it's believe it or not, we've been speaking for about an hour, and it's just gone just like that. But I wanted to ask you about, how did you get into the tallis making business? How did you get into
so much? Well, you saw that picture of the 4 sons.
Yeah, but I see these
boys.
Things, Swedish, whatever it is.
Yeah, this wonderful woman, Ellen Temkin, who now lives in Boston, she went to an embroidery guild meeting, and somebody showed her Swedish weaving, and it was horizontal designs on cotton cloth. And she said, wow, this would be perfect for a tallis. So she started teaching different women in the congregation. And I thought, I've got 4 sons. How awesome will it be if I make a homemade tallis for each of my 4 boys, and then I'll make it for other members of the family. And then one day I'll be in shul and I'll see like 3 rows of all my homemade tillesim on my family. That was my dream. So I've been making them. I give them now to whoever the president of the synagogue is. I give them a tallis. I would make one for Rabbi Haddon, but his wife made him one. But if you want me to make you one, I will. I've made Rabbi Reiner several, and I put pieces of his mother of blessed memory's jacket that she wore to his bar mitzvah on the inside 4 corners of everything I make him, so he can feel his mother.
Well, I would be honored if you'd make me one.
Why not?
But I'm not your rabbi.
There we go. Yeah. I do love making them, and that's a recent commission right there. And we put pieces of a baby blanket on the inside corners so that they can feel their childhood, pieces of a grandfather or grandmother, a piece of a tie. I just think it makes it very meaningful.
Oh, it's wonderful. There is some time for questions, and
well, I can ask if anybody has any questions. We have a distinguished audience this evening, and thank you very much for everyone that's tuned in. If you have any questions for Debbie, this is a good time to ask. And if you can either put your hand up in the usual way via Zoom, or you can attempt to wave furiously in front of the screen so that I can see you on the monitor here.
Well, I'm so happy to see everybody, and I appreciate everybody who took the time to be here today. It was really a pleasure and an honor. So thank you so much.
It's lovely. I mean, I'm seeing now in the chat line, because I haven't had a look at it, very, very familiar faces. Nice to see Lois here, and Beth.
And Judy Tischler, who's a
Faith.
Jewish music scholar. Thank you. Of course, Rabbi Haddon. Oh, Joe. And my friend Lisa Block-Rodman, a renowned family court judge. Google her. You will be amazed at the things she's done. Unbelievable. Ken Isman, wonderful. Writes beautiful music, too.
And our Nusach Rabbi Winston's here.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's wonderful. And I appreciate it. And it just shows how people think of you, and it's not just me who thinks you're wonderful. It's you have a fan club, and may you continue to do what you do, inspire the next generation, inspire your families, inspire your congregations, and we look forward to your collaboration with Beth. I don't know if Beth wants to say something while she's still here.
Can you hear me right now? Yeah, I wasn't able to do my camera, and I'm working on some music right now, but and listening at the same time. But it was, just was so honored to watch you and to listen to you share all such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, I think it's just amazing how you, Debbie, carry this history and tradition for like, it's just a wealth of information. I mean, it goes really, really deep. So thank you. I always look to you it's an amazement when you share this stuff, because I grew up.
Thank you for that Miriam Award.
Right, I was
really thanks to Beth.
Yes, and I was fortunate to grow up with a lot of this music. I had no idea that a lot of this was written by your family. Amazing. But yes, I look forward to anytime you want to get together and share music together, or if I'm happy to be invited onto one of your chats like this, or Zoom. Anytime, let me know.
Awesome.
So I think, Alex, perhaps we'll look at what's coming up next week. You know that we normally have something every other week. In fact, this time we've got something next week instead. And we have Rabbi Cantor Lionel Rosenfeld from Jerusalem, late of the Marble Arch Synagogue in London, a fifth in line of Jerusalem Rabbonim and Cantors. And many people will know him as one of the stars of the Shabbaton choir. So we have Lionel next week at the same time as usual. We would normally leave a fortnight's break, but on this particular occasion, this is next week, Wednesday, the 12th of January at 7 p.m, the usual time, and the usual arrangements for those who want to tune in to sign up for that.
Thank you, Russell. For those who, those who don't know Lionel is worked originally with Stephen Glass, who probably many of you know as an arranger and a writer of music, and they formed the Shabbaton choir with the blessing of Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Oliver Shalom, and they used the Shabbaton to educate different congregations and go around the UK and to Israel and to America and to appear in various different places with their wonderful type of music, the modern arrangements of the nusach and of the tefillahs and the prayers, the choral settings that we are used to in the synagogue. So this is, when it started, it was thought-provoking, and it was, to some people, quite radical. But once you get involved with that sort of music, it connects you. So something modern with something old, and the fusion together, how the Shabbaton and Lionel, Shimon Kramer and Johnny Turgle make this work. And we've got a very, very special recording of Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs with the choir and the children. So we're going to play that as well next week. So it's going to be something very, very special. But
could we ask Cantor Debbie to chant Katchko's Birkat Kohanim for all of us?
Why not?
She is such a blessing to us.
Oh, the Yivarech.
Cantor, when you chant to me and to all of us,
oh, thank
to
you.
hear it from you.
It's my great honor to bestow a blessing upon our honoree, Yivarech that I grew up with, which is the way I heard it every week from my father. Yivarechecha, Yivarechecha, Adonai yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er, Ya'er Adonai, Panav Eilecha, Panav Eilecha, V'chunecha. May God cause a glorious light to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai, Panav Eilecha, V'yasem lecha, V'yasem lecha, V'yasem lecha shalom. May God cause radiance to follow you all your life, and the blessing of shalom, peace. Amen.
what a lovely way to end this evening. So poignant and so perfect.
Thanks, Rabbi Haddon.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for
Thank
joining
you for
us.
having me.
And please, God, you're always welcome to join us on a weekly basis or whenever you can.
I
And
saw the beautiful program at Faith, and I've been, it was magnificent, and I'd love to be part of more things.
absolutely.
And learn from you too. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing all you do for Chazanut.
It's a pleasure. And thank you everybody for coming. May you have a wonderful 2022. Maybe it'll be better than 2021. May we all pray for a better year. And also, can we also pray for Robert Keevil? Please, can we all pray for his speedy recovery?
Absolutely.
For Shalom. For those people that are asking, there will be a recording of this. For those people who came in a little bit late, a recording of this will be available as usual after this Sunday at cantors.eu, www.cantors.eu. And if you haven't caught any of the previous 6 programs that we put in the series, you can find all of those available from our website, www.cantors.eu. And with that, we will say good night and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Good night. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.